Hi everyone, welcome to TalkED, Thought Leadership series by CollPoll. Today we have a special guest, Sachin Jain, who is also like our first guest coming from industry to the world of education. Sachin has been at leadership positions of Genpact, Ernst& Young, and also had his own entrepreneurial stint before he got into education with Educom, Laureate, and Bennett, and finally now with Sintana, which is a global alliance for the higher education institutions. Welcome, Sachin, to our series. Pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me here, Hemant. Look forward.
Yeah, perfect. So, Sachin, first question to you is, you've been part of some very highly successful institutions like UPS, Dehradun, and Bennett University. And I'm sure you would have seen some common patterns, right? So, what do you think are the key ingredients to building a successful world-class higher education institution?
Uh, I would say that I was fortunate to be part of the institutions that you named, and was part of the growth team to really uh, set them for growth. That said, I think there are quite a few examples out there in terms of universities which have really accelerated and created a mark for themselves. To me, world class is slightly esoteric. I think it all boils down uh, to the vision of what you really want to define the university as, and I think that's the key, and that's happened at UPS, wherein the founders had a very clear vision to create something which is very focused on energy as a domain, and I think they painstakingly worked for a decade to really create that differentiation, and so on and so forth. But I would say that similar to UPS, or for that matter Bennett, wherein in the days when AI was not even known as what is the full form, we took a stand that we want to be building our muscles in contemporary technology domains, be it AI, machine learning, etc. And some of the initiatives that we started from the very beginning actually helped us create that differentiation. So it all depends upon the vision, what you really want to create. And some of the other examples I must quote here. For example, OP Jindal, very laser focused in terms of what they wanted to do with the law programs. And I think that's what created a very unique distinction for them in the law domain. And Shulini, I must share that again, highly focused on research from day one. And I think that has started bearing the fruits for them. So, in nutshell, what I would say is that it starts with the vision of what should define you, and then, but that's half of the job done. I think the second half, more important, is the execution, because in education and in higher education particularly, unlike any other B2C domain, the product market fit takes much longer because the gestation period of a product is much longer. So it takes probably 8 to 10 years to really understand whether the programs and the vision and the execution strategy is actually playing the way it should in the market. So I think um, uh, 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 differentiation, the vision, and then followed by a very, I would say, resilience in executing that vision matters. That said, I would say that for universities, uh, the days are gone wherein you can present your portfolio of programs like a menu. I think the learner of today doesn't really appreciate that. He's looking, or she's looking for something which is unique, which is contemporary, and which is differentiated. So I think it is important to kind of have a learner-centric approach in the way you define. And then I think the two other areas of influence that kind of that which is beyond the core of how you define a learner-centric higher education institution would be in terms of engagement with industry. And I think all the universities that I mentioned or you mentioned, again, there was a very clear focus in terms of how you are engaging with industry from day one, how you are bringing them into the classroom, into your board of studies, into every aspect of a program. and that really helps. And I think the third and the most important, again, area of influence is the entire community society. I think gone were the days when you can just be confined within the four walls of your university boundary and have some bit of industry interaction. Unless and until you are engaging with the community, you are engaging with a larger ecosystem to really, again, to have a two-way conversation in terms of what is working and what is not working, and how that can be incorporated into the programs. I think that's again very critical aspect of how you define the university. So I think learner centric at the core, industry as the second layer, and the community, both local as well as global, to me are the three spheres of how you would kind of design a university going forward.
Yeah, great. So you talked about global community, Sachin, and you're working with, you're leading Sintana in India, which is actually driven, largely by Arizona State University. So now you would have got a lot of exposure to global universities and institutions, even earlier as well, but even more now. So what do you think? And Indian universities have their own strengths, have their own uniqueness. So not to put them that they are not, good enough, but what is it that we can, Indian institutions, higher education institutions can learn from some of the best in globally?
I think the learning is two-way, as you rightly said. Uh, there are those paths of excellence across the world, and I think, needless to say that everyone has to learn from everyone. I think with ASU, with Arizona State University, being a public university and now among the largest universities in US, I think there are two or three things that stood out for me as a professional, as an individual, and it all depends upon how you really want to kind of, what's your vision of the university and how you want to shape it. But I think there are some elements that I would certainly like to share. The first one is the charter of ASU itself. Uh, and the charter goes by, in the words that they define themselves by whom they include and not whom they exclude. And it's a very powerful statement, which is kind of plastered all across ASU. And what they really mean by it, Hemant, is the fact that they are not exclusive, or they are not defining themselves by kind of how many students are they excluding from getting a higher education. They are essentially saying that it is the job of a university to really transform a learner into what he or she could become, and we are looking at providing that access at scale to these learners. So I think that's a very powerful statement, and with 140,000 students at ASU's campus, that itself talks about that they're living this charter day in and day out. So that's one element, and it's also important for countries like India, where we talk about the second largest higher education market, 40 million learners, probably reaching 90 million learners in the next 15 years. What is it that we're creating impact? How many students are we really impacting on an annual basis? Because at the end of the day, we all know that education has got a transformational impact on the society. So I think this is one way for institutions to think in terms of what is their scale of impact in their regions, in their societies that they're operating, and ASU that way has kind of delivered on their charter. I think the second biggest learning, or I would say USP, which I found is this notion that quality and scale are two parallel tracks of and they cannot converge, or they cannot. So you have to choose between one or the other. Either you choose quality or that scale, and it also transcends from the first element that if you're going for scale, you have to now compromise on the quality, and that, I think, again, ASU has proved incorrect. And I think in lot many ways, it is among the top 1% globally ranked universities consistently for so many years. Day before yesterday, we all saw ASU ranked world number 2 in impact rankings by QS on the SDG goals, so on and so forth. It is number 1 in innovation in US for last 7 years, ahead of MIT and Stanford. So what it has proved is that quality and scale can converge, and if you're really putting in have a vision to drive quality at scale, it is possible. It is, excuse me, it is not something which is impossible. So I think that's the second element that I was fascinated about, and kind of also helped me break my notions of this traditional thought process. The third, I think, is innovation, and innovation transcends, again, not just, it is a mindset. It is a mindset, and I think it has got its multiple variations of what innovation can do inside a classroom, outside a classroom, and some of the visionary things, like we talked about Meta and we talked about metaverse today. There has been a lot of case studies and what do you say, research, which is going in that AR and VR is going to be the future of delivering education at scale going forward. And President Michael Crow partnered with Dreamscape probably 4 years when nobody even was thinking about AR, VR, or Meta. Meta was not even there as in its current form, and really kind of investing in creating an immersive experience for students, which is more in the AR VR zone. So I think innovation, and how do you really challenge yourself day in and day out to kind of be the innovators. We teach innovation a lot in the classrooms, but do we really preach it, or we really kind of implement it? So that to me is the third element. And fourth is in terms of digital first. And this is something that you have also seen, the kind of technology enablement. And I would stress on the word enablement, because there's a lot of noise, wherein noise around that technology will replace eventually that master on the stage or sage on the stage. It will never. It will never. I think it has to be an enabler. It is not a competitor, and that's what ASU has done at scale in terms of bringing technology as a very strong enabler of driving innovation, of driving a contemporary education in their campus, in their online programs, etc., etc. So I think these are the four key elements that I got fascinated, and areas where universities should look at going forward. I must share the fifth, which is again very unique, and I'll stop after this. There is again a challenge that that they are kind of giving to themselves through the Santana partnership, or the Santana as a concept, wherein the traditional US model is essentially import, wherein students are coming from all global countries or international destinations into US for education. That will continue, but we all believe that that's only kind of impacting the top of the iceberg. How do you really create impact at scale, at 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 the countries, at the local institutions? And I think that's how Santana was born, in terms of really driving and sharing these best practices, sharing all the resources that ASU has created with universities across the globe to really create an export model rather than an import model. So I think that's again a very unique and I would say ahead of its time kind of a initiative that ASU has taken through the Santana alliance to really create such impact at scale at international universities across the globe.
Thanks, Sachin. Very, very insightful. And I think I was trying to connect the dots with, like, you spoke about scale, you spoke about inclusivity, you spoke about digital first. And, whenever you talk about inclusivity, scale, technology is one thing that always shows up, because technology has been one of the biggest sort of levelizer in terms of, like, bringing an even field for everybody, right? So there's a lot, like you said, a lot being said about technology in education, that it'll replace institutions or it'll replace the teachers, and so much has been said and done, right, on that. But we clearly, and I think both of us share that opinion, that technology will be a great partner to education institutions, but there is so much more value in being at, especially at an undergraduate programs, being at a campus. There's more learning about life that happens on the campus, which just can't happen easily over a a Zoom call or online classes, right? So, but what are your views? Do you think it's the technology at education institutions specifically? I'm not talking about the edtechs of the world where they're offering online classes and test preps and all. I'm talking especially technology at education institutions. One, how important do you think it is first? Second, do you think, especially Indian institutions are leveraging it well enough? And third, how do you see, that changing and technology actually becoming a key force at education institutions in India?
We all have heard of this, wherein sometimes things don't happen in decades and sometimes decades happens in years or weeks. I think this is the inflection point for when we talk about technology in education. And the last 2 years have really kind of shown the impact and the leverage that technology can create for education institutions, be it K-12, be it higher education. And given that we both are more associated with higher education, I think there is no denying the fact. Technology is here to stay. And as I said, technology is an enabler. To me, technology is not a competitor. Technology is an enabler across the entire spectrum of a student life cycle or a university life cycle or a higher education life cycle. So I think the appreciation for technology, the appreciation for the various technology products in really enhancing the experience, be it for the faculty, be it for the students, be it for a larger stakeholder, has immensely improved in the last 2 years. And there are so many such products that have come up into being to really help universities, to help students, to help faculty improve and kind of have a better kind of handle on their job. So it is going to stay. It is only going to get integrated, and for all the right reasons. The learner of today is a Gen Z learner, is a digital native. Even the faculties are more digitally aligned today than what they were probably a decade or 2 decades ago. So there's a transformation which is happening. But I would say that one is the core technology, I would say infrastructure, when I talk about digital first. But digital first transcends across the entire spectrum to me. And it's again a mindset, unlike just a tool or a technology or a product. It's a mindset to me. And I think, and that has to be integrated far more into the mindset of how you design programs, how you deliver programs, what should be the teaching learning outcomes, irrespective of what program that you are learning. And then you have this entire technology enablement layer that is supporting this entire life cycle. So it's going to stay. It is only going to get more deeply embedded. And I think there is a lot of room for innovation to kind of bring it more closer to the learner, provide a more access. And there are again so many reports talking about the accessibility of education. And I think technology as an enabler has this great power to bring that accessibility, to bring those global classrooms into each and every university, to bring those global experiences into each and every classroom that was not possible in the physical domain or space in the yesteryears.
Thanks, Sachin. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. Thanks for this conversation, taking out time for this. And I'm sure a lot of people would have a lot of takeaways from this discussion.
Thank you, Hemant, for having me here. Thank you.